Here at Fit by July, we program all of our workouts around one of our four major lifts. Our four major lifts here are the bench, the squat, the deadlift, and the overhead press. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the bench. The setup on the bench is what's going to determine if you're successful at the bench and how well you bench or not, right? So I've seen a bunch of people do the bench in one way and be successful at it. I've seen a bunch of people do the bench on another setup and not be very successful. So essentially what the setup is we're gonna try to create as much tightness as possible when we do our setup. All right, so if Tony was brand new to benching and he came in, he's excited to bench and he's never done it before, these are the things that we would instruct him to do. We would coach him into doing. So I would have Tony lie on the bench. Now, once Tony's lying on the bench, I have Tony grab the bar. Now, what we tell our members to do is we want them to grab the bar as low on the palm as possible, and we use the slit in the wrist or the slit in the thumb as our point that we want him to get to. So he's gonna grab the bar a little bit outside his shoulder width apart, and he's gonna wrap his thumb and his fingers around the bar. Now I've seen people not wrap their thumb around the bar and be successful, but it's a little bit less safe than wrapping your thumb around the bar. Once Tony's arms are in the right place and his wrists are in the right place, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to build that tightness that we spoke about a little bit earlier. Now, we're gonna start by having Tony drive his traps down into the bench. Now, I want Tony to be relatively uncomfortable. I want him to be uncomfortably tight. If I don't feel him being very uncomfortably tight, I'm gonna ask Tony to put his feet up onto the bench. I'm gonna have him raise his hips off the bench, and I'm gonna ask him to really drive those traps down into the bench. He wants to be able to create tightness. Once we have that tightness where we've created an immovable force, then he can put his feet down on the floor, keeping his traps down into the bench the way he did earlier. Now, what we're gonna try to start to do now is we're gonna start to build more tension and more tightness. So Tony has his feet nice and comfortable right now. His feet are nice and comfortable. So that's what we want. We want his feet to be in a place that he can maintain, but I want Tony to drive his feet down into the floor. Now, as Tony drove his feet down into the floor, hopefully you guys were able to see his hips rise a little bit. We've created that. What that tells me is that we've created a little bit more tightness and tension because it created an arch in the back, right? Now, once Tony gets here, I'm gonna have Tony drive his feet, keeping his feet locked down into the floor. Imagine driving his feet forward. And hopefully, again, you guys saw his hips raise up a little bit. Now, hopefully what we've done is created a point where Tony's uncomfortably tight. You're not gonna be comfortable being this tight. So once he gets to that point, we're gonna have Tony take the bar up. So he's gonna give me a count off. 1, 2, 3. And I want Tony to hold the bar right here. Now, if we were successful in creating enough tightness, Tony will be able to hold this bar here all day long. If we were unsuccessful in creating the tightness that we're looking for, this is gonna feel too heavy for Tony to hold up. Because what the tightness does is it creates stability in that upper body to be able to hold this bar. Once we have those things, the stability in the upper body, the leg drive, I'm gonna have Tony bring the bar down to his chest. He should be feeling the weight in his legs. Once the bar gets to his chest, I want him to drive his body away from the bar as fast as possible. So he's gonna come down again, nice control, and he's gonna drive his body away from the bar as fast as possible. One more rep. And we're gonna rack it back. So as soon as he picked the weight up, he should have felt the weight in his legs. You know, so like I said, the setup is gonna be key. There's different variations of it that I've seen successful, I've seen unsuccessful. But you know, the things that you can play around with are, you know, where you have your feet, the arch in the back. Those are things you can play around with. The things that you don't wanna, you know, be slack on is you wanna make sure that you have a whole body, you know, tightness and tension so that no energy leaks out while you're doing your lift. The second thing you want to focus on is making sure that you have that leg drive into the floor so that you can build force from the floor to the bar. You want to generate force from the floor to the bar. The third thing you want to focus on is the wrist position or the hand position on the bar, where the weight is going to be right over the elbows, being able to maintain a straight wrist so that you can bring the bar down to its proper position on the chest and back up. So that's how we coach our bench with our members. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, anything you just want to rap about, you know, follow us on Instagram at FitByJuly or like our Facebook page at FitByJuly. And keep remembering what this is all about, you guys. Us is trying to maintain living a healthy lifestyle. Continue striving to live in shape.